Imagine being hunted through a dark, relentless forest, with danger closing in from every shadow, and only one mysterious ally by your side to survive the night. Quang faces this terrifying ordeal as he narrowly escapes his pursuers, racing through the wilderness with a girl who knows the forest better than anyone. By dawn, his mother and Linda arrive at the cabin he once hid in, only to find it empty, but he has left a hidden message, a secret clue to his location. Will they decipher it in time to find him? Subscribe now and join the suspenseful journey. The forest was alive with the restless whispers of night, the wind rustling through the branches like a chorus of unseen watchers. Quang's breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale sharp and urgent, his heart hammering against his chest as if trying to escape on its own. Behind him, the snap of twigs and the crunch of leaves under heavy boots grew louder, more deliberate. He knew they were coming, knew they would not relent. Shadows danced and flickered in the dim moonlight, stretching across the forest floor in ominous patterns, as if the very trees themselves were conspiring to hide him. Or to betray him. He didn't dare look back for more than a fleeting second, only enough to see the faint glow of flashlights bobbing between the trees. The silhouettes of men moving like predators who had smelled their prey. Panic rose in his throat, bitter and choking, but he forced himself to stay calm. Every second counted. Every misstep could be the one that ended it all. Sweat stung his eyes, dripping down his temples, soaking into the collar of his shirt, but there was no time to wipe it away. Adrenaline surged through his veins, sharpening his senses. He could hear the smallest shift of a branch, the faintest rustle of leaves under someone else's foot, the way the wind carried their voices, low and threatening, through the dense underbrush. And then, like a sudden beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness, she appeared. The girl, quick, agile, her movements almost ghost-like, emerged from the shadows of the trees. She didn't speak, didn't pause. Her hand shot out, grasping his arm with a firm grip that left no room for hesitation. "This way," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of his own heartbeat. Quang didn't question it. He couldn't. Every instinct in his body screamed to run, to survive, to follow without hesitation. Together, they darted down a narrow trail, winding between towering trunks and tangled roots, the undergrowth clawing at their legs as if trying to hold them back. Branches scraped against their faces and tore at their clothing. But the girl moved with a precision that made Quang's heart skip a beat. She knew the forest intimately, weaving through the thickets, leaping over fallen logs, ducking under low-hanging branches, all the while keeping them just far enough ahead of their pursuers. He tried to memorize every turn, every landmark, the twisted oak with bark like gray stone, the fallen birch that lay across the trail, but it was all a blur. Time seemed both stretched and compressed, every second a lifetime, every heartbeat a drumbeat in a symphony of fear. Behind them, the shouts grew louder, more frantic, the sound of pursuit crashing against the night like waves against jagged rocks. Quang could feel the heat of their chase, the pressure of unseen eyes watching every step, every stumble. And yet, somehow, in the midst of panic and chaos, there was a strange rhythm, a silent understanding between him and the girl. He didn't know her name, didn't know anything about her, yet he trusted her completely. Without her, he knew he wouldn't have lasted past the first few minutes. With her, there was a chance. A slim, terrifying, exhilarating chance. They burst through a thicket into a small clearing, the moonlight spilling over them in a cold, silver glow. For a fleeting moment, Quang allowed himself to breathe, to feel the wild rush of relief that surged through him. But there was no time to linger. The forest was still alive with the echo of pursuit, and they needed to disappear completely. Somewhere deeper, somewhere hidden, was safety. And together, in the heart of that dark, relentless forest, they sprinted into the unknown, driven by nothing but sheer will and the silent promise to survive until dawn. The first light of dawn filtered through the dense canopy, casting a pale, trembling glow over the clearing where Quang and the girl had vanished the night before. The forest, once alive with the chaos of pursuit, now lay in an eerie stillness, as if holding its breath. Somewhere beyond the trees, the distant cry of a bird sounded unusually sharp, almost mournful, echoing through the silence. Back on the path they had fled, the remnants of a hasty camp, broken twigs, scattered leaves, and the faint trace of footprints were the only proof that someone had been there at all. By mid-morning, Quang's mother and Linda had arrived, their car crunching over the gravel road that led to the small, isolated cabin he had once sought refuge in. Their expressions were etched with worry, eyes scanning the surroundings for any sign of him. Every second without Quang was a knife twisting deeper into their hearts. They had come as quickly as possible, guided by fragments of his last messages, desperate to reach him before it was too late. But when they reached the cabin, the place seemed abandoned, frozen in a haunting stillness. The door hung slightly ajar, swinging gently in the breeze, creaking like a slow, sorrowful sigh. Muttering his name softly, her voice trembling, Quang's mother stepped inside, her eyes sweeping across the sparse interior. There was no sign of him, no coat tossed on the chair, no backpack left behind, nothing but the faint smell of smoke from a fire hastily extinguished. Linda joined her, scanning the room with a keen eye, as though hoping her sharp gaze could pierce the emptiness and pull Quang back from wherever he had gone. The silence pressed in around them, heavy and unyielding, as if the cabin itself were complicit in the mystery of his disappearance. And then, almost imperceptibly, Quang's mother noticed it, a faint, almost invisible mark on one of the wooden support columns. At first, she thought it was nothing more than a smudge or a scratch, the kind that might be left by age or wear. But something about it felt deliberate. Linda crouched closer, her fingers tracing the subtle grooves in the wood, revealing tiny, careful letters written in a faint streak of charcoal. Quang had left them a message, small, almost hidden, yet unmistakably intentional. The letters spelled out a clue, a hint to where he had gone, encoded in a way that only someone looking with the right eyes would see. A shiver ran down their spines as the realization sank in. Quang had been here, and he had known they would come. He had anticipated their concern, their desperation, and had left this secret, delicate breadcrumb for them to find. Their hearts leapt and constricted all at once, relief, fear, and awe mingling in a confusing, overwhelming rush. Whoever had been pursuing him could still be out there, just beyond the treeline, and yet he had taken the care to leave them this lifeline. For a long moment, mother and daughter stood in silence, reading and rereading the hidden message, trying to decipher every nuance, every subtle hint that Quang had left behind. It was both a reassurance and a challenge, a quiet puzzle designed to test their wits and patience. The forest outside seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting for their next move. Somewhere, deep in the shadows of the cabin, the echo of that night's terror still lingered, a reminder of what they had narrowly escaped, and what still might be lurking just out of sight. And yet, within that tension, a spark of hope began to grow. Quang was alive. He had thought ahead, planned, and prepared, even under the pressure of imminent danger. He had left them a trail, subtle but undeniable, a thread that could lead them back to him. Now, it was up to them to follow it, to step carefully, think clearly, and navigate the dangerous, uncertain path that lay ahead. Every beat of their hearts, every breath of air seemed charged with anticipation. The game was far from over, but for the first time since the nightmare had begun, they felt a glimmer of connection, a whisper of possibility that he was still within reach. The faint sunlight filtered through the cabin windows, casting long, slanted shadows across the wooden floor, but it did nothing to lift the heavy weight pressing on Quang's mother and Linda. They stood before the column where the hidden message had been left, staring at the subtle charcoal marks that seemed almost impossibly small in the vast emptiness of the room. Their hearts were caught between hope and despair, a torturous pendulum swinging with every passing second. The thought that Quang had been here, had passed through this very space, yet now was gone again, filled them with a crushing sense of helplessness. Linda's hands trembled as she traced the letters once more, trying to understand the subtle hints embedded in the cryptic message. Each stroke felt deliberate, a whisper of his presence in the cold silence. He was here, she whispered, voice barely audible, and he wanted us to know he's safe. Or at least that he's alive. But even as she spoke, the fear gnawed at her insides. Alive, yes, but alone. Alone and hunted. Alone in a forest that had already proven itself merciless, where danger lurked behind every shadow and every rustle of leaves. Quang's mother pressed a hand to her chest, the ache in her heart spreading like wildfire through her body. She could almost hear his rapid heartbeat from the night before, remember the terror in his eyes, the sharp, desperate gasps for air as he ran through the darkness. The image of him, vulnerable and determined all at once, burned itself into her mind. She had wanted to reach him, to wrap him in her arms, to shield him from every threat, yet now he was somewhere beyond their reach, and all she could do was follow the trail he had left. The forest beyond the cabin seemed to pulse with silent menace, a constant reminder that Quang's safety was precarious. Every bird call, every shifting branch, seemed amplified in the tense quiet, each one a warning that they were still within the reach of those who sought him. And yet, in the midst of their anxiety, a spark of determination flared. The hidden message was not just a clue, it was a lifeline, a thread woven from his presence, fragile but unbreakable. They had to follow it, decipher it fully, and trust that it would lead them to him before it was too late. Hours passed in a blur of careful examination, murmured speculation, and restless pacing. They checked every corner of the cabin, every nook and cranny where Quang could have left additional hints. Each discovery was both a relief and a fresh pang of sorrow, because it reminded them of how close he had been and how easily he could slip further from their grasp. The uncertainty gnawed at their minds, each unanswered question a thorn pressing into their hearts. How far had he gone? Was he injured? Was someone still tracking him? Every possibility, no matter how grim, raced through their thoughts relentlessly. And then, just as their exhaustion threatened to overwhelm them, Linda's eyes caught a faint smudge near the floorboards, almost invisible against the grain of the wood. She froze, breath catching in her throat. "Mom. Look," she whispered. Her mother leaned closer, heart hammering violently. The marks were tiny, almost like footprints or scratches, leading subtly away from the cabin toward a narrow, barely visible trail winding into the forest. Quang had planned this, left them a way forward, a secret path that only those who cared enough to notice would find. A surge of hope and anguish collided in their hearts. Relief that he was alive, fear for what dangers still lay ahead, and a fierce, burning determination to reach him now fueled every step they took. The forest waited silently, indifferent, As mother and daughter began their careful, painful journey, hearts tethered to the knowledge that Quang was somewhere out there, alone yet cunning, leaving traces only they could follow. With each step, the ache in their hearts deepened, but so did their resolve. They would find him, no matter the cost, guided by the fragile, secret thread he had left behind in the quiet shadows of the cabin.